Venti's just got some buffs and he's currently rerunning, so let's get straight into 8 teams for him, starting with this Hexencircle team. So if you haven't heard, Venti's a DPS now. His normals are converted into animo damage and they increase the duration of his burst by 1 second up to a total of 2 seconds. When his burst is active, on-fielders that trigger a swirl reaction have their damage increased by 50% and Venti's burst will deal more damage. Albedo's stronger too. When there are 2 Hexencircle characters in the team, Albedo's skill essentially creates a ghost version of itself. This means it can't be destroyed by enemies. Also, he buffs the team's normal attack, charge attack, plunge attack, skill, and burst damage by 4% for every 1000 defense he has, up to a maximum of 12%, so 3000 defense. For other Hexencircle characters, it is 10% damage for every 1000 defense, up to a maximum of 30%. His skill damage is also buffed by the ghost flowers I mentioned earlier. His C1 gives extra defense now as well, so he's a good pick for your free constellation. Doran's given us an extra source of damage and resistance shred. Bennett is... Bennett. No buffs for him, which probably doesn't come as a surprise. Swapping Albedo out for Farazan gives us a bit more of a Venti carry team. With the attack buff from Bennett, shred and off-field damage from Doran, as well as the shred and animo buff from Farazan, this is now Venti's strongest team for his own damage. Giving Farazan 4-piece tenacity is going to give the team attack, which is better for Venti, but I recommend 4-piece Viridescent Venera, which is better for Doran. This genuinely felt like one of the strongest AoE teams in the game, so I'm looking forward to seeing if it gives us any more AoE content. I'd love to test it against other teams and see where it stands relative to them, but it's hard to do that when most content is a bunch of single target bosses. Regarding his new weapon, I think it is a good weapon to get if you're going for Doran's weapon as well, but on Venti, it's not going to perform that much better than some of your other options. It is his best weapon obviously, but Thunder Impulse and even Skyward Harp aren't that far behind. Its versatility is its main value, so if you do go for it, you're going to be able to use it on a lot of characters. I'm going for Doran's weapon, so I'm hoping to get a copy of the bow to throw on Fischl. Let's take a look at some teams where Venti's a support instead of a DPS. Back in 1.3, Xiao felt like one of the strongest DPSs in the game. Believe it or not, people genuinely referred to him, Ganyu and Hu Tao as the big three. A couple regions later he fell off, so he gave us Farazan. He was still underwhelming, so a year later people paired him with Farina, and then Xianyun came out a few patches later. I like that team to be honest, but Farina's a character in high demand, so it always helps to have alternatives. This team here has the social skills of a Genshin account on Twitter, but the damage is alright. Venti's giving Xiao an animo damage buff, Doran's giving his shred and another source of damage, Xianyun buffs for plunge attacks, and then there's enough energy in this team with it being 3 animo units that Xiao can get his ult with no issues. Venti's AoE helps the team too, because Xiao's plunge attacks will knock opponents back without it. I think people forgot how good his AoE is, because for years we just used Kazuha, but Venti will be a lot better for Xiao. I don't think it's one of the best teams in the game, but it does get value from vertical investment. If you were to go for either of Doran or Xianyun's weapons, Xiao would get a buff from them. I prefer to get more characters than constellations and signature weapons, but it's a win for those that want to take this team further. If you're a regular on this channel, you know I'm a big fan of Dia, but she drifts between underwhelming and sometimes salvageable. I thought I'd try with Doran and the Venti buff to see if they do anything for her, and it wasn't too bad. I felt Venti's infusion on his normal attacks covered Dia's downtime fairly well. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely enough for Imaginarian Theatre and a lot of Abyss cycles. I think using Dia in single target situations when you only see one number at a time kind of emphasises how weak she is. Having a unit like Venti to group enemies where she hits multiple enemies and you can see a bunch of numbers at once definitely made her feel stronger. It's cool from a lore perspective too, because lions are a part of the Knights of Favonius lore and also the imagery in Dia's design and backstory. Her nickname is Flamane and her story quest is called Lion's Blood. It's just a shame she doesn't summon one like the Eremite enemies have animal summons. On that topic though, the Hexerite buffs are the first we've had in Genshin, and given the fact Dia is one of the characters in need of a buff the most, I'm actually optimistic she'll get buffed now. Back in the earlier days of Genshin, people used to play a team called Morgana using one of Ayaka or Ganyu along with Mona, Venti and Diona. Escoffia simply does more than Diona, and given Skirk is our newest cryo DPS, I thought I'd give her a go in this team. You lose damage and shred from Skirk and Escoffia's passives by having an animo unit in there. You gain the shred from Viridescent Venera and grouping. The main reason I tried this team mode is I simply wanted to experiment with the Skirk burst team. Most teams we use her in, we don't see a burst animation because we use the other burst to buff her normals, which is a shame because her burst animation is one of my favourites over the past year. The damage wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be, but Venti's not the answer to who's going to be the on-fielder for a Skirk burst team. I think for AoE Abyss cycles, where there are a lot of freezable enemies, it'll be fun though. Mona's buffs weren't really tailored towards freeze, but having her roaming up for longer definitely makes her more viable in Skirk teams. It's not a whoopee video without a random bullshit go team, so here it is. There have been questions over Nouvelette's place in the meta recently, but I think anyone seriously doubting whether he can still perform at the top level has been drinking with Venti. He is definitely still an S-tier unit if for no other reason than you can throw anyone in a team with him like this and still smash content. It won't be ideal for Stygian, but I feel that's less of an issue with the team and more of an issue with Hoyo intentionally shilling specific units with specific bosses. Through AoE content, Venti gives us the sucky sucky, making it easier for Nouvelette to squirt all over the enemies. Escoffia's Shred from a passive suffers with us only having 2 characters to fulfill it, but Venti gives us VV and we have a bunch of sources of damage too. Seeing as though Doran can't shred Hydro or Cryo, you might as well play him in dark mode here for buffing his own damage. With Nouvelette's Doran and an alcoholic, we need to give this team a fun name. 2 dragons, 1 cup, anyone? When he's not giving us some of the most infamous birthday art in the history of Genshin, Heizo is often busy keeping the bench warm. With Venti now giving a 50% animo damage bonus, it's felt appropriate to give Heizo a run out so we can show off them shit coloured pants. I actually like Heizo's gameplay and having some more units to synergize with him in Doran and now Venti after the buffs is a win. Only downside was that recording footage without a sustain was awkward. For Venti to trigger his buffs though, we needed another Hexarai character and there aren't currently any sustains. I could swap Farazan out for Bennett or maybe even Iansam, but if we're not going to use the Animo buffer in a niche, when are we going to use her? I enjoyed playing Heizo again, but I still prefer his Taser teams. Speaking of Taser teams, let's have a look at one. We've seen Venti as a DPS and support, here he's a driver and an effective one in my opinion. Fischl helps us hit the Hexarai quota, Inefa is sustain and more damage, Yelan is some Hydro application, damage and a buff for Venti. Xingqiu could work if you don't have Yelan, or maybe Columbina will have synergy with Inefa here. If only there was a content creator with a nice voice and sense of humour who'd do a guide for her. Then we could all watch it after this video. For a score out of 10, I'd probably give Venti an 8 now. His damage still doesn't compare to the higher tier DPSs, but in AoE content he's one of the best supports again and he gives the Hexenzirkel characters more options. He might even get a signature set in the future too. I've put out guides for Doran and Columbina already, and I'm gonna drop team showcases for Yehoda, Albedo and Mona too. If you're interested in those, subscribe to the channel, don't forget to join my Discord in the description and take it easy.